Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Everstage's Go to Master Show, Season 3. We converse with RevOps and GTM leaders from some of the most successful companies today and learn from their unique insights. Joining us today is Yuval Bresler, Director of Revenue Operations at Yotpo. Thank you for being here today, Yuval. Could you please share a little bit about yourself to our listeners?
Sure. So first of all, very excited to be here. A little bit myself. Again, as you mentioned, I'm leading some of the revenue teams, the revenue ops teams here at Yotpo. I've been doing this for over 4 years now, but really dedicated kind of the most of my career towards consulting, and then working at different SaaS companies, leading operations teams.
Awesome. How you started is kind of interesting. Can you walk us through your career path from Israeli Justice Department to your current role leading global sales and partner ops at Yotpo?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. I think I don't have an kind of the most usual background, but I think it's positive because I think what we I wanted to get through in this conversation also is that there's many paths into kind of becoming a RevOps individual or a leader. I actually started as you mentioned as a I would say semi consulting attorney working for the Ministry of Justice in Israel. So basically, think about working on petitions that are rendering against the state of Israel. Because my background was economics and law, I was mostly working on a lot of kind of those complicated financial cases in which we had to consult the different ministries in Israel how to conduct themselves, how to change the laws, and how to work with the different petitions that were rendered. And so that kind of got me excited about this whole word of law versus economics versus business, really kind of being in that intersection, including public and private sectors. Um, so that's kind of what led me into that ops. But I would say one more thing, so that's kind of from the skill set and from what I was interested in. I think I'm being more of a generalist type of person. So I like to do a lot of things all the time. I'm very good with context switches, and I think that's also something kind of brought me into working from kind of being a consulting attorney all the way to ops leader. In terms of the path itself, I was fortunate to attend Columbia after working at Columbia, New York, after working for the Israeli government, and then I really set time to try and focus on solving some of the larger problems in both business school and policy school. Um, and I think kind of those skill set were a very good match in what operations teams are doing. So eventually, understanding the problem sphere very deeply, and understanding what type of scenarios you can what's the most efficient scenario that you can implement or change or mitigate, kind of pushed me towards more and more kind of towards places across tech. And then I was offered a position right after school with Monday.com, really in the intersection of strategy and operations. And I was very glad to take it. And really, I saw how the skill set that I, kind of culminated throughout my time in the Ministry of Justice and then through kind of my master's really resonated with the different tasks that the company operated back then. And then I think obviously I spent some time there and then moved to Yotpo, which is my current company. Wanted to change some of the setting in terms of smaller company, more responsibilities, more kind of ability to vertical transfers, and really owning a larger scale team. So that's kind of my journey, all the way to sitting here in this chair talking to you.
Of course, there's no school or college to learn operations, but you do a nice parallel of context switching, which is common across, right? You fight a lot of fires on a daily basis as operations leader as well. Your journey from law and economics to RevOps is quite unique. How has this background influenced your approach to operations?
I think it's a great question. I think if let's start from the end basically. I think a good operations manager is someone who's and you said it yourself is able to context switch often, and is able to learn quickly about how the company works and what type of problems are created. So I think obviously being a law student and then working in law really helps you solve many different questions that kind of people are addressing, right? So there's People are consulting with you so many things about so many different things, and you have to quickly learn the thesis, you have to quickly learn the methodology, and you have to provide answers. And I think that really resonates with what operational individuals do, because when you think about, again, in a very macro level, what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand where the problems are in the company, either proactively or reactively, speaking with some of the managers, speaking with leadership, and understanding where they face challenges, understand what tools we have. So in law, it would be the law, obviously, or kind of different scenarios, or what the courier says. And in business, it's more, the data or looking at the information, and then coming up with a solution that we can implement, or a project that we can say, this would fix or this would change some of the problems that we're facing. Um, and I think, again, studying this, really, spending time in law doing this alongside, I guess, affinity to data, or the ability for me to draw insights or feel very comfortable with data just because of my background in economics, I think is really kind of created the perfect balance for me to also being able to look at problems from a bird's eye view, but also have a good understanding of how the data and how the infrastructure works. And together, I think really helps me forge or understand where should I focus and what the problems are and how to solve them. So I think, although it sounds, or it might be not as straightforward, I think there's definitely skill set in both kind of domains in terms that really help me kind of, being a better leader and being a better ops manager.
Yeah, you mentioned about data, the bird's eye view, how we are able to take quick decisions because of data. Another key piece of the puzzle is people and stakeholders. How do you approach aligning cross functional teams, especially when it comes to breaking down high level metrics into team specific KPIs? Because it's people and it's always complex.
So I think that's obviously kind of the million-dollar question when it comes to operations. And obviously, you have the classic marketing and sales, and DG and post sale, and there's like so many of those type of, I would say, frictions. And taking a step back, I think when you look at the ops role within companies, and obviously it varies between different companies, but really is about understanding what the situation is and understanding kind of the levels of friction. So the way that I think about my team is either removing some of the friction, right? So let's say, marketing and sale, there's always a high level of friction, or even in other processes, you have to create you have to create the right scenarios, the right meetings, the right processes to remove frictions from the different stakeholders, whether it be, dividing and conquer the different KPIs, getting every team to look at their own metrics and goals, and then combining them on a leadership level, to reduce the finger pointing, to reduce the friction between different teams. But at the same time, I would say if there's areas across the company where the friction is too low, right? Meaning people are working in silos, there's really there's nothing that kind of, help people work together towards a joint goal. I think that's where I find that me and my team, we need to increase the friction, right? So to create processes that would force them to work together, or to force them to look at any and the other team's metrics to understand where they stand. So it's really about understanding where the friction is and trying to optimize in terms of what you want to achieve and how things are actually working. And so that's what kind of the way that I see problem solving in the world of stakeholders, or the way of, different functioning teams across the business.
I have one on change management as well. When proposing changes or new initiatives, which probably you're doing quite often in the company when the business objectives change, like what strategies have helped you successfully influence leadership decisions, especially when proposing changes or new initiatives?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and as the more senior you become in the ops role, the more you're facing with those type of challenges. Um, and I think, as everything in life, basically, the way that I look at this problem is through three kind of different pillars. I would say in order to influence change management, in order to really try to leverage or to kind of harness different stakeholders across the company, I think you have to do a pretty decent job in three areas. So the first one would be to come prepared. I know it sounds very intuitive, but I think you have to build trust from the very basics. So really, work your way to the decision maker, not necessarily by talking to them, but going over the data, speaking with ICs across the company, speaking with, managers from different levels. Come prepared with the changes that you wanna perform. The second thing is scenario management. Now, scenario management, I'm not saying that you have to create scenarios that are not relevant in life. But I think you have to come prepared with a few kind of your best case. It's a type of negotiation in a way. So your best case, kind of the scenario you think would ultimately be chosen, and really to position your offer, to position your your initiative in those lenses, right? So best case this would happen, the average case this would happen, and then kind of to structure the meeting or to structure the offer based on that. The third is, I would say, obviously kind of the areas of politics a little bit, but I think it's still valid and important, is to learn how the leader that you want to persuade, or the leader you want to have a conversation with, thinks about problems, right? So knowing what they care about, what KPIs they're reporting on, what's important to them from their manager perspective, and really trying to feed it to them in a way that they would see this as part of what they do, and how this would allow them to move forward with their objective and KPIs. And again, I don't think you need to do 100% job in all of those three pillars, but definitely you have to get 70-80% right in probably the three of them to kind of convey and change. But if you do a decent job, I think what you would end up with is an intelligent discussion. And as ops individual, as an ops manager, I think my approach to thing is try to set the table for an intelligent discussion to allow operators alongside operations to make a good decision. I won't be offended, and I won't mind, quote unquote, if my suggestion won't be the one that will be chosen, but that I know that leaders have the right data, that they've seen the different scenarios, and they make up the decision, together with me or together with my team. And really, that's the ultimate goal in terms of trying to push for initiatives, is highlighting those factors, those scenarios, and making an intelligent decision across the business.
You also mentioned about AI. AI will significantly reshape RevOps in the next few years. What specific changes do you foresee, and how are you preparing for them? Your team, yourself, how do you do that at this point of time?
I don't think there's that one conversation in the past, I would say
Mhm.
6 months, that AI didn't come up at least once. And I think it's very important. It's very important for ops individuals and ops leaders to have the AI mindset um, when they're trying to build at scale, or when they're trying to build a team. So again, here I'll give you my vision to it, and then we can talk about the specifics of what it actually means. So the way that I see it, operations is mostly there's a few fields basically that we're in charge. So um, a lot of the work that we're currently doing, I think, would be not be ultimately replaced, but I think that in 2 or 3 years' time, what you end up seeing is a much smaller operational team that are driving and orchestrating, in a sense, agents. And those agents will take care of a lot of the, I would say, the mundane, less glamorous part of the role, which we're spending a lot of time in currently. So think about, and I know this would probably resonate with a lot of the people who listen to this, um, enrichment, right? Structuring the data within Salesforce, getting data from gong calls, getting data from different meetings across, like Zoom meetings and everything, back to Salesforce, getting the sellers to do all of those things. This requires a lot of work from the ops team in enforcing, in manual adjustments, and so on and so forth. You would have an agent that would be able to do it. It's a very low stakes, right? There's not a lot that come into this, but on scale, it's very important for the business. So that's one end of things. The other end, and I think again that we're spending a ton of time, is territory building and ICP building, which is basically when you kind of decompose it, it's assembled from getting the right data, which takes a lot of time to marry so many different data points across the company, and then maybe to set like a scoring model, to set some type of indicator that would allow us to prioritize. This, again, low stakes, a lot of manual work, a lot of marrying data and not really come up with insights. That would also be replaced by AI agents. And I think the first part, this would allow ops to really focus on where I think AI will either will take a lot of time to replace humans, or it will, I'm not sure it would even be possible in the kind of the near future. And that's insights, finding the problems, double down on what we think is the best way to move forward. So think about, and again, I'm excited even to talk about it, but think about resolving myself from a lot of the manual work that we have to put into the basics, the processes, the Salesforce overhead, and really able to look at the data, trying to see where the business is struggling, and trying to optimize for that work. And AI, I think, will definitely take a lot of the effort that we're doing on that end of the scale. On the other hand, I think ultimately I would allow, as it allows developers to be much more efficient, it will allow ops managers to be much more efficient. So in that sense, I think on the other end of the spectrum, the more complex model that we're building, the more interesting, data analysis that we're doing, I think AI would definitely help every single one of us become much more efficient. And again, I think, and I'll give you an example. I'm trying to define the right ROE between account managers and CSMs. It's a tough question. You need to get a lot of the data, but it's context that's involved within the company. So I don't think that would be able to be replaced by an AI. But when I would build those with that ROE, I can get AI to fetch all of the information to present me with some benchmarks of what other companies are doing, and really allow me very quickly and very efficiently to build that. What would have taken me probably a few more days or weeks even to kind of nail down. So I really think that on the manual side of the house, you would see a bigger improvement, but also on the more complicated thing, it won't replace, but it will make the teams more efficient. So that's, I think, in the short term. In the longer term, probably the shorter term, by the way, I mean, like, let's say the 2 to 3 years. On the longer term, the 5 to 10, obviously, it's very difficult to know.
Yeah,
But I think you would see ops role kind of become more strategy. So you won't have really kind of the distinction between strategy and ops, because a lot of the processes would be AI based. And you would mostly focus on trying to navigate the ship instead of building the periscope or building the engines, right? And I think maybe thinking about it this way, is where are we heading? Because right now we're the periscope, we're the engine, to some extent, and we also
yeah.
allow kind of where the ship is heading, navigating. And I think navigation would be probably the sole or most time that we would invest across the company.
That's a very nice analogy, steering the ship than building the ship from the scratch and spending more time on it, right? So, three key pieces of advice you would like to share with the listeners who aspire to excel in the field of RevOps, Yuval.
First, I think ops is an area that's growing, and there's no one background that fits what a good ops manager would be. If you are comfortable with data, and that you are a generalist and you're curious and you want to solve you know problems, as vague as it sounds, you have a role within one of the ops teams, probably somewhere. So that's one, I think, one basic task. The second is, and I think it's something that people kind of neglect, and I really start from the basics. I think trust is the most important currency that you have as an ops leaders and as an ops individual, because of the proximity to infrastructure and data. The expectations is that every output from the team, at least, even if it's not smart, which it should be, but even if it's not the most cutting edge information you can provide, has to be accurate. And don't waste that currency. It's very valuable, and getting trust from leadership and from your coworkers is the basis of a good functioning operational team. So that would be my second proposal. And the third proposal, which I think, by the way, I would love to hear other people try to face that question in the podcast later, in later episodes, is make it hard for your I would say operator that you're working with. So for example, the VP sales and the VPCS. And by making it hard, I don't mean ruining their lives, obviously, but I mean challenge what they do, challenge their processes that they have, challenge the way that they're paying their people, challenge the incentive model, try to challenge everything, and work together with them to kind of get to a place where you feel that you're optimizing the resources, or you're optimizing the leads, or whatever that is that you're working on currently. So the friction, again, going back to what we discussed, create that friction, obviously in a positive, polite manner, but be that person that they know someone would ask, hey, why are we doing this, or why are we doing that? This is a tremendous quality, I think, as an ops leader. Of course, other than the table stakes, you have to be smart and diligent, and so on and so forth.
Great 3 pointers. Enjoy solving business problems. Trust is the most important currency. Make it hard for your operator. Challenge the status quo. Like all three are golden, but personally, I love the second one because usually operations is considered to be the bad cop, but it's important to build that trust within stakeholders, the primary stakeholders, as well as with teams. Well, that brings us to the end of this insightful episode of Go to Masters. Big thanks to Yuval for sharing his experiences and valuable insights. Remember, you can tune in every week to learn more from game changers driving hypergrowth companies across the globe. Go to Masters is brought to you by Everstage, your trusted partner for transforming the way businesses handle sales commissions. I'm your host, signing off.